Bring in Eric Mangini, 3 years, Jets head coach, rings with the Patriots. I'll say this, you have generally defended the Patriots, and because you should. I mean, they've been a dynasty for 20 years. But sometimes, and I've seen this in college, Eric, where what ate up USC with Pete Carroll or Mac Brown at Texas or Urban in Florida is he lost good assistants. And they spent more time recruiting assistants than they did recruiting players. And I think sometimes we forget how valuable that really tremendous coordinator is. And now Bill doesn't have one. And I'm like, okay, that you didn't just lose a coordinator. You may have lost the best offensive coordinator in football. Like, I think it's an issue not having a coordinator at OTAs with a young quarterback. Like, am I too hyper on that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Not only did they lose Josh McDaniels, they lost Mick Lombardi, they lost other offensive coaches from that staff. A lot of people left that building. I was frustrated with Mac Jones being as flippant as he was about Josh leaving. He doesn't know what he had with Josh. And then to transition the way that they're transitioning with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, both are good coaches. Both were in this system for a long time. But Joe's never coached on offense, and Matt coached on offense for 2 years when he started. And look, I did this in San Francisco, not at the coordinator level, but I worked on offense, and then I coached tight ends after 20 years, after being a two-time head coach, after being a defensive coordinator. And there was a lot of value I could bring from that defensive perspective, but it's different. It's like writing with your left hand after always writing with your right hand. And there's a lot of nuances that you don't appreciate that you learn from being on one side of the ball for a long time. It's a harder transition than I think people realize.
So, Nathaniel Hackett for Denver, Russell Wilson has his critics. I think you've often been a little bit of a critic, but he's just going all in on Russell. And, I think I can say this with some certainty that Russ never felt they went all in with him. It was either the run game. It was, run on first and second, save us on third down. Hackett's taking the whatever makes him comfortable, we'll do it. Are you okay with that? Or is that feel like you're appeasing or appealing to Russell that's not good for the football team?
I think it's the absolutely right thing to do. I think it's the smartest thing to do. And when we brought Brett Favre into the Jets, my thought process was we're going to do what Brett Favre does well. Otherwise, you're not going to get the value of his experience. You're not going to get the value of what he does that's so special. And I think that was one of the biggest issues in Tampa Bay when they brought in Tom. They wanted Tom to adjust to their system instead of just letting Tom do what he's done so well for 20 years. And when they finally figured that out and gave him the reins, everything changed. And so for them to start with, let's do what Russ does well, let's do what makes him happy. To me, that's how you maximize his impact, especially in the short term on the team. I think it's absolutely the right decision.
It's the NFL is not the NBA, but we are seeing now NFL players get like NBA deals, international soccer deals, and they're also now making money on shoes and social media. And with that, and I've said this, it'd be great if every quarterback was Dak. He doesn't have the contract yet. He plays through it. That'd be great. Or if everybody was Brady and they took pay cuts. But that's not real. Like some guys, we know who they are. They bring a lot to the table. Kyler Murray, for instance, was a baseball guy. Baseball tends to be more individual than football. Like you go to the plate, you get a hit. You're on the mound, you get guys out. You need teammates, but it's more individual than football is. Kyler now is not going to go to OTAs. I don't love it, but I also don't want to overreact to it. They're better with him. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't love this either. And I don't know how it's going to get resolved. He's not going to make very much new money this year, and he's going to feel underpaid. And he already has scrubbed the team once from his social media. His agent's gone very public on Twitter. There's the sense or there's talk that he felt that he was a scapegoat for their late season collapse. And how is it going to get resolved? Because when you look at it, there's guys like Tannehill, Goff, Wentz. They all got contracts after the third year, but I don't think the teams are looking at that going, wow, we made a great decision in doing that. Now you got Mahomes and Allen, and that's a different equation. And Watson, you could argue, is a different equation too. I think the Cardinals want to see what they really have. Do they have the first part of the season version of Murray, or do they have the second part of the season? And I think that's fair from an organizational perspective.
Yeah. Speaking of organizational, not everybody in the league liked it when the Browns just gave Deshaun Watson a contract that's all guaranteed. It's like, it's just a lot, especially with his baggage and the stuff you're going through. But other owners, I'm sure, in GMs, don't love that. It changes the market. And, I look at the Baker thing and I think, now Cleveland reportedly is going to eat more of the contract and move him. I think there are times, I feel like this with Westbrook and the Lakers, you're not going to win the trade. Just get him at the toxicity. Just get him out of the room. Focus in on Deshaun Watson. But he is a number one pick. He won a playoff game. There's value there. What would you do if you ran the Browns with Baker?
It's so interesting, Colin, to be out in and talk to people about Deshaun Watson, because people in Cleveland are trying to get their head around it, and Baker's almost become a sympathetic figure here, where people feel like maybe he's getting wronged. But I'd say at this point where Cleveland is, they've gone through the hard part. They've taken their lumps. They've moved on to Deshaun Watson, and now just wait. And I don't know if you remember the Sam Bradford situation in Philly, where they traded him late after Teddy Bridgewater got hurt, and got a first and fourth for him, because quarterbacks are like currency. And at some point, either Seattle's going to look at their quarterback situation and say, we don't like it, or Carolina, or some starter's going to get hurt. And now Baker Mayfield is going to be really, really valuable. So why not? You've eaten a bunch of the criticism. Just wait and move him when you get value, because it's going to happen.
Yeah. You have been, it's interesting. I have been kind of a Derek Carr fan, but sort of a Raiders cynic forever. You have been much higher on the Raiders over the last 2 years, and almost, I think, officially everybody. And but I will admit, as a critic of them, I like their offseason moves. I think in that division, you've got to have a number one receiver, because Hunter Renfrow and Waller are excellent, but you need a number one. I think Devontae Adams is that. They went and got another pass rusher. I do think Josh McDaniels, it feels like he learned from his mistakes. Like, I think it'll be a better version of him. I would imagine even in that division, you're still on the Raiders bandwagon, which you've been on now, sometimes alone, for 2 years.
Look, I'm buying Raiders stock again this year, and you add a receiver with, what do you have, 125 receptions and 11 touchdowns. You add a pass rusher that had 10.5 sacks. You add Josh, who we just talked about is arguably the best offensive coordinator in the league. But you've also got Mick Lombardi, who worked with me in San Francisco, who's like Josh. He's smart. He's worked on both sides of the ball. He's innovative. He's a great addition as well. And there's a lot of things to like about this team. They finished on a 4-game winning streak. And Josh, I would imagine, has learned. And he's taken a lot of time between his first head coaching job and his second head coaching job. And there's value to that. And yeah, you want to buy Raiders stock. I'm going with that again. I'm going all in.
Yeah, Josh, his first job with Denver, and I think this happens occasionally. You're young. You're Lane Kiffin. I felt at USC. You're going to be a great coach. You're just not ready for it. There's a lot to do. I mean, you know this. You were in New York, and all of a sudden you get there, and it's like, the press conferences, and the owner's needier than you thought. When you look back at his Denver experience, what did he do wrong, and what will he learn from? What was his big mistake?
Well, his mistake was very similar to my mistake, in the sense that I grew up with very strong football fathers, with Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells, and I liked and believed in the things that they did, just like Josh grew up with Bill Belichick. And oftentimes when you get that first job, and we're all guilty of it, we end up not speaking in our own voice. And that was a classic mistake that I made, and I talked to all new head coaches about. You can do all the things that you love about the place that you were, but you need to make sure that you do it in your own voice. And I think Josh has a great personality. He's a great person, and he probably was too hard in that first job, which wasn't as authentic to who he is overall. And that I'm sure resonated with the team.
Looks like, Eric, you're fit and trim. What's going on there in Cleveland? What is going on?
Well, moving into summer, I want to make sure that I'm not at my peak weight, because I do tend to add on some pounds through the course of the summer. So this is like me cutting the boxer before before he's got to fight, before he's got to eat. So I got to cut down, otherwise,
Yeah, go sideways.
Yeah, they're going to put a rope on me. I'll be afloat in New York.
Great seeing you, Coach.
Good seeing you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.